Open mic time. Tony Casillas here. Cowboys, with a month to go in the regular season, have already clinched a playoff spot. I want to talk specifically about what we saw in Minnesota and what we might see against the Giants. But first, big picture, the significance of already clinching a spot in the postseason with 4 games to go. Pretty impressive.
That's amazing. We talk about how this whole season's unfolded. The fact that they got a chance to play for the NFC East next week against the New York Giants is a phenomenal season. And it hasn't been as easy as we thought, considering, well, I guess it has been easy, but obviously last week against Minnesota, it was kind of an obstacle. But just everything they've done, and then Scott Linehan again, I mean, everything that they've orchestrated on offense to make Dak Prescott get involved with this offense, and just remarkably where this team is right now.
We've talked a lot about Jason Garrett through the years on this show, and in critical terms a lot of times. But talk about the credit he deserves this year, maybe the credit Jerry Jones deserves for sticking with Garrett, because that philosophy, as frustrating as it can be for those of us who follow him in the media, that robotic one moment at a time philosophy, his team has bought in, and here they are having a really special season. Well,
we don't really get to see behind the curtain. As a former player, I can kind of attest to what happens. But again, I think that they've bought into what Jason Garrett, his voice. And there's so many times that Jason Garrett is kind of the frontline guy, the same mantra, the same interview, the same answer to the questions. But behind the curtain in that locker room, there's become this common bond. And every player that you talk to really loves the whole chemistry with a coach like Jason Garrett, because it has resonated and they are responding to his message.
Cowboys improved to 11-1 with a win Thursday night at Minnesota. It was not necessarily impressive in some ways, but you know you're having a good season when the fan base is criticizing the types of victories you're getting. Yeah, they won, but it was ugly, and that's the kind of season that it's been. Let's talk about it a little bit. Dak really felt the pressure of that Minnesota defense, which is very good, and Prescott struggled at times.
Again, this was probably going to be the matchup that the most concern for this offensive line, and right away they exposed them. I mean, up front they weren't good for 3 quarters. I mean, takeaways, rushing the quarterback, guys getting beat, something we haven't seen to this point in the season. And again, I think it was just kind of hold the line. There's going to be patient, which I think Scott Linehan and this offense has done all year long. And let your rookie quarterback make some really good decisions, in which he did during the course of the 4th quarter. But you have those type of wins. You have those ugly wins on the road in a place like Minnesota where you expect there to be issues, crowd noise, momentum. So I think as much as they struggle, Mike, to me this is a very key win for them, because, again, it gives them an opportunity this next week to play for the NFC East.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We saw Dez Bryant with a big play there. He had a couple of them. There weren't many in this game. Dez was part of a couple of them. For the 3rd straight week now, after there had been questions about, hey, how much does this offense really need Dez Bryant? Suddenly, he's been a guy who's kind of been their big play alternative.
Yeah, it is. And I think for Dez, at times he wants the football. He's a playmaker. That's his whole DNA. He wants to be part of this offense. But I think that he understands that there's more options for this offense, and in a way it's going to help him. And as much as we want to get on Dez about him, we interpret it as being selfish, it's just him having a passion as a player. And again, it seems as we go into later on in the season, Dez Bryant's going to be a big part of this offense, and probably going to be the reason why the Cowboys go really long in the playoffs.
Dallas in firm control of the division. As you said, a chance to clinch it at New York a week from tonight, and already a lock for the playoffs now. So you're going to get more and more questions about how players should be used down the stretch. And I think one that will continue to be brought up is, should Ezekiel Elliott's carries be limited? He leads the league in rushing, but in carries as well. And now he's becoming more of a weapon out of the backfield, too. 86 yards at Minnesota, his 3rd straight game under 100 yards. Is there any merit to limiting his touches? He's a young guy, but trying to keep him fresh for the postseason.
Well, I understand the merit, but you got to remember they play 3 games in a 12-day period, and that's a lot of football. And so I think not just as an individual, Ezekiel Elliott, I think as a whole, as an offense. For me, I'm going to keep my foot on the gas pedal. I'm not going to change anything. I mean, it's a hot hand, it's momentum. You don't want to change the complex of this offense. You just want to keep feeding him the ball. And we all know, as you see right there, that he wants the ball. So why change it? So I don't believe in that. It's a month of December, Mike, where things start to heat up. And as you start getting ready for the playoffs, you cannot look back and you can't really think about what you need to do to preserve guys. You just got to continue to go ahead and again, get that NFC East title and get home field advantage through the playoffs. And
Jason Garrett will be relieved to know that Jerry Jones on the radio last week said that Ezekiel Elliott's carries will not be limited. So that straightens that out. All right, we wrap it up here. A week from tonight, Cowboys at the Giants, division on the line for Dallas, all sorts of room now for error for the Cowboys, but a chance to put it away against the Giants team that really struggled at Pittsburgh today. What do you think, just big picture as you look at that? Eli to Odell Beckham, always a huge threat against the Cowboys secondary that shows some vulnerability at times.
Well, we know that's that's going to be probably the narrative in this game is what, how will this defense play against a team like, the Giants. And remember, they won 6 straight going into the game today in which they lost. And they're always going to be a nuisance. They're always going to NFC matchup, rival. These two teams don't like each other, so I wouldn't expect to be anything less than that. And I think it's going to be really nice to see 2 of the top receivers on the field at the same time.
Giants the only team to have beaten the Cowboys so far this year. That, of course, in the season opener.